I met my friend Lisa for our regular coffee catch-up. The cafe was bustling, and we settled into our favorite corner booth, our usual safe haven from the chaos of daily life. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on work, family, and weekend plans. The usual topics, nothing out of the ordinary, until Lisa decided to drop a bombshell that would change everything. Over a second cup of coffee, Lisa leaned in closer, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "You won't believe what Tom and I tried last weekend," she whispered, her voice dripping with excitement. Intrigued, I leaned in too, eager to hear more. Her story started innocently enough, but soon took a turn that made me blush and squirm in my seat. "We invited a third person into our bedroom," she revealed, her tone casual as if she was discussing the weather. My eyes widened in shock. Did I hear that right? Lisa, the same Lisa who used to blush at the mere mention of a romantic scene in a movie, was now sharing explicit details of a threesome. I could feel my face turning red as she continued, every word more explicit than the last. This was not the kind of conversation I was used to having over coffee. Her story was explicit and detailed, making me blush and squirm in my seat. I tried to maintain my composure, but it was hard to ignore the growing curiosity inside me. Lisa's words painted a vivid picture that was both shocking and oddly intriguing. "What about you? Ever thought about spicing things up with Mark?" she asked, a sly smile playing on her lips. I laughed it off, trying to hide my embarrassment. But the seed had been planted. The idea was now swirling in my mind, refusing to be ignored. I couldn't shake off the curiosity. What would it be like? She suggested we all meet for drinks that weekend, planting the seed of a potentially thrilling adventure. Her proposal was casual, but there was an underlying excitement that I couldn't ignore. Part of me was horrified, but another part, one I hadn't known existed, was intrigued. That evening, I brought up Lisa's story with Mark. I expected him to be shocked, maybe even angry. But to my surprise, he was intrigued. We discussed the idea hypothetically, both pretending it was just a wild fantasy. Yet, the more we talked, the more real it seemed. The idea of watching and being watched began to take hold, exciting us both in ways we hadn't anticipated. On Friday night, Mark and I joined Lisa and Tom for drinks at a cozy, dimly lit bar. The atmosphere was charged with unspoken possibilities. After a few rounds, the conversation turned to their recent experiences, and Mark and I listened with rapt attention. It was as if we were living vicariously through their stories. Each detail sparking a new wave of curiosity and excitement. Back home, Mark and I couldn't stop talking about the night. We started exploring our own boundaries, discussing what-ifs. The idea of watching and being watched began to take hold, exciting us both in ways we hadn't anticipated. It was like opening Pandora's box. Once the idea was out there, there was no going back. The following week, Lisa proposed a more intimate gathering at their place, hinting at a deeper exploration of our fantasies. Mark and I agreed, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement as we anticipated what might unfold. This was uncharted territory for us, and the thrill of the unknown was intoxicating. As I stood in front of the mirror, preparing for the evening, I couldn't help but wonder how we had gotten here. From a casual coffee meeting to the brink of an intimate adventure, life had taken an unexpected turn. I took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, feeling a strange blend of fear and exhilaration. The whole day was a bundle of nerves. I spent hours preparing, trying on outfit after outfit until I found the perfect balance of sexiness and subtlety. My mind raced with what-ifs and maybes. What if this changes everything? What if we regret it? But also, what if it's the thrill we've been craving? Mark and I exchanged anxious glances all day, each of us silently acknowledging the uncharted territory we were about to enter. This wasn't just another Friday night, this was a leap into the unknown. When we arrived at Lisa and Tom's place, my heart was in my throat. Their house was warm and inviting, the candles casting a soft glow around the living room, making everything feel just a little more surreal. They greeted us warmly, as if this was just another casual get-together, but the air was thick with anticipation. We settled in with drinks, trying to ease the tension, but the unspoken possibilities hung in the air, impossible to ignore. Lisa, always the instigator, suggested we play a few games to break the ice. Harmless fun, she said, but we all knew where this was headed. We started with innocent dares, but it didn't take long for things to escalate. Each dare pushed our boundaries further, the tension growing palpable. Every touch, every kiss, every look tested the limits of what we thought we could handle. Then came the moment that would change everything. In the heat of the game, Lisa dared me to kiss Tom. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. But then I felt Mark's gaze on me, his eyes filled with encouragement and something else, something primal. I leaned in and kissed Tom. It wasn't just a peck, it was a full, lingering kiss that sent electricity coursing through me. It left us all breathless, the air around us crackling with newfound energy. The game continued, each dare more daring than the last. Mark and Lisa shared a passionate kiss, their chemistry undeniable. I watched, a mix of jealousy and excitement swirling inside me. Each touch and kiss heightened the anticipation, making us hyper-aware of each other's presence. The room seemed to shrink around us, the walls closing in as the heat between us grew. Without a word, it became clear that we were all ready to take things further. The atmosphere was charged with mutual understanding. Lisa, ever the leader, suggested we move to the bedroom. My heart pounded as we followed, each step feeling like a step towards something that would forever change us. In the dimly lit bedroom, the four of us hesitated briefly, a final moment of shared uncertainty. But then, the moment passed, and we gave in to our desires. Mark watched as Tom and I shared another passionate kiss, this one deeper, more intense. It was the beginning of a night that would forever change our relationships, a night where boundaries were pushed, limits were tested, and desires were fully unleashed. Tom's hands roamed my body, exploring every curve with a confident touch that sent shivers down my spine. I could feel Mark's eyes on us, a mix of arousal and curiosity burning in his gaze. Every touch from Tom felt more intense under Mark's watchful eye, each caress heightened by the knowledge that my husband was seeing it all. The intensity of being watched, of being the focus of both men's attention, made every sensation more electrifying. Mark moved closer, his eyes locking onto mine. "You're doing great," he whispered, his voice a mix of encouragement and raw desire. His words made me feel both empowered and submissive, a heady combination that added another layer to the experience. Watching his reactions, seeing the lust and approval in his eyes, blended voyeurism with participation in a way that was both thrilling and surreal. Across the room, Lisa and Mark began their own exploration. Their chemistry was undeniable, a potent mix of passion and connection that was impossible to ignore. I watched them, feeling a mix of jealousy and excitement that I couldn't quite understand. The room was filled with the sounds of pleasure, each couple lost in their own world yet connected by the shared experience. It was a symphony of sighs and gasps, a testament to the intense emotions swirling around us. At Lisa's suggestion, we swapped partners. Tom's touch was replaced by Mark's familiar hands, but there was a new intensity to his caresses. The thrill of being with Tom, followed by the comfort of Mark, created a cycle of heightened pleasure and connection that left me breathless. It was like tasting a forbidden fruit, only to return to the safety of home, each experience enriching the other. The four of us moved together in a fluid dance of desire, each touch and kiss carefully balanced. The boundaries between us blurred as we became more comfortable, exploring new ways to please each other. The night turned into a whirlwind of pleasure, each moment more intense than the last. It was as if we were on a roller coaster, climbing higher and higher, with no intention of stopping. Lisa, always the adventurous one, suggested trying new positions and scenarios, pushing our boundaries even further. We experimented with different dynamics, each one more thrilling than the last. The room seemed to pulse with energy, every movement a testament to our shared desire and mutual trust. It was a night of pushing limits and discovering new heights of pleasure. Finally, exhausted and satisfied, we collapsed in a tangled heap. The room was filled with the scent of sweat and sex, a testament to our wild night. We lay there, catching our breath, the reality of what we'd done sinking in. It was a strange mix of satisfaction and disbelief, a realization that we had crossed a line but done so together, with mutual consent and shared desire. The next morning was a quiet storm of emotions. We awkwardly dressed, the remnants of the previous night's events hanging heavily in the air. The room felt different, like it had absorbed the electricity of our encounter and was now humming with it. Mark and I exchanged knowing glances, each of us unsure of what to say but understanding that things had changed. Breakfast was a quiet affair, the clinking of spoons against bowls the only sound breaking the tension. Back home, the silence finally broke. Mark and I talked about our experience, each of us admitting to enjoying it but feeling uncertain about what it meant for our relationship. The thrill of the night had given way to a need for clarity and understanding. The boundary-pushing excitement was one thing, but what did it mean for us going forward? Did you enjoy it? Mark asked, his voice tentative. I did, I replied honestly. But it's confusing. Exciting, but confusing. Mark nodded, the furrow in his brow showing he felt the same way. We knew we needed to talk about boundaries and desires, to understand where we stood and where we wanted to go from here. A few days later, I met Lisa for coffee again. This time, the atmosphere was different, charged with the knowledge of what we'd shared. She was excited and eager to continue our adventures, but I shared my reservations. We discussed the impact on our friendships and marriages, agreeing to take things slow and communicate openly. I needed to ensure that this wouldn't damage the bonds we held dear. Are you okay with everything? Lisa asked, her eyes searching mine. I think so, I replied. But we need to make sure we're careful. This is new territory for all of us. Back home, Mark and I had a long talk about our boundaries and desires. He admitted that watching me with Tom had been both arousing and challenging. It was a strange mix of emotions for him, and I understood completely. We agreed to explore our fantasies further but set clear limits to protect our relationship. The thrill was there, but so was the need for security and trust. Over the following weeks, we focused on our own relationship, reconnecting and rediscovering each other. The experience had brought us closer, making us more open and honest about our desires. We found ourselves talking more, laughing more, and exploring the depths of our intimacy in ways we hadn't before. It was like the night with Lisa and Tom had peeled back a layer, revealing something raw and beautiful underneath. We found a new rhythm in our relationship, balancing our everyday lives with the excitement of occasional adventures. The experience had added a new layer to our intimacy, making us more confident and connected. We were more in tune with each other, understanding our needs and boundaries better than ever before. Then, Lisa suggested another get-together, this time with more structured activities to ensure everyone's comfort. The idea was to have a plan, something that would guide us and keep things from getting too chaotic. We agreed, feeling more prepared and excited for what lay ahead, knowing we had established trust and boundaries. As I stood in front of the mirror, preparing for our next adventure, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. We were stepping into this new chapter with eyes wide open, ready to embrace whatever came our way. The thrill, the connection, the excitement, it was all there, waiting for us to explore. And this time, we were doing it with a clear understanding of what we wanted and needed from each other. We prepared for our next encounter with Lisa and Tom, feeling more confident and clear about our boundaries. The anticipation built as we discussed new ideas and fantasies to explore. It was like planning a grand adventure, only this one involved trust and intimacy instead of maps and compasses. Mark and I spent evenings talking through scenarios, laughing at some, getting serious about others. The excitement was palpable, a mix of nerves and eager anticipation. When the night finally arrived, the atmosphere was more relaxed this time, with everyone knowing what to expect. We started with a casual dinner, easing into the night with wine and light conversation. The talk was more open and explicit, setting the tone for the evening. There was a comfort in our shared understanding, a mutual agreement to explore and enjoy without judgment. Lisa, ever the organizer, introduced a set of rules and activities to guide our play, ensuring everyone felt comfortable and respected. The structure added a new layer of excitement, making the experience more deliberate and intense. It wasn't just about the physical act anymore, it was about the anticipation, the build-up, and the connection. We experimented with different pairings and scenarios, exploring new dynamics and boundaries. Each activity was carefully negotiated, ensuring everyone's comfort and pleasure. It was a dance of consent and desire, each step taken with careful consideration. The structured approach allowed us to fully immerse ourselves in the experience, deepening our connections. The night was filled with intense moments of pleasure and connection, each touch and kiss more deliberate and meaningful. The sensation of Tom's hands on me, Mark's encouraging whispers, Lisa's playful touches, it was all a whirlwind of sensation and emotion. Each moment felt heightened, more profound than the last. As the evening progressed, we found ourselves moving together in a fluid dance of desire. The boundaries between us blurred, creating a tapestry of shared pleasure. The structured activities guided us, but it was our trust and connection that made the night truly magical. We ended the night in a group embrace, sharing a moment of collective intimacy that felt both profound and satisfying. The experience had brought us closer, creating a sense of unity and trust among the four of us. It was a moment of pure connection, a reminder of why we had embarked on this journey together. The next day, Mark and I reflected on the night's events, feeling more confident and connected in our relationship. We discussed what we enjoyed and what we wanted to explore further, laying the groundwork for future adventures. The experience had added a new layer to our intimacy, making us more confident and connected. We were more in tune with each other, understanding our needs and boundaries better than ever before. Processing feelings after such intense experience wasn't something Mark and I were used to. We spent a lot of time talking, trying to wrap our heads around the emotional impact of our adventures. There were highs, unbelievable, thrilling highs, but also lows that left us questioning what it all meant. We acknowledged the challenges but also the benefits, realizing we were more in tune with each other's desires than ever before. Did it bother you when I was with Tom? I asked one evening, the question hanging heavy in the air. Honestly, a bit, Mark admitted. But seeing you so happy was worth it. His words struck a chord. It was the first time we truly confronted the mixed emotions our new lifestyle brought. The thrill was undeniable, but so were the complexities. We continued to communicate openly with Lisa and Tom, ensuring everyone's feelings and boundaries were respected. It wasn't always easy, but it was necessary. We learned that maintaining this balance required more than just physical connection, it required emotional honesty and a willingness to face the uncomfortable truths head-on. Balancing our adventurous experiences with the demands of daily life was its own kind of challenge. Between work, chores, and social commitments, finding time to nurture our newfound intimacy wasn't always simple. But the thrill of our encounters added a new spark to our everyday interactions, making our connection more vibrant. Mundane tasks became opportunities for secret smiles and knowing glances, a private language born from shared secrets. Of course, jealousy reared its ugly head from time to time. Those moments were tough, there were nights I lay awake, the green-eyed monster whispering doubts in my ear. But we faced these feelings openly, discussing our insecurities and reaffirming our commitment to each other. It was in these raw, honest conversations that we found strength, building a deeper level of trust and understanding. Our friendship with Lisa and Tom grew stronger, built on a foundation of trust and shared experiences. We spent time together outside of our encounters, enjoying regular activities and deepening our bonds. Game nights, barbecues, and casual hangouts became more meaningful, knowing the deeper connection we shared. One evening, over a glass of wine, Lisa suggested a weekend getaway to a secluded cabin. A perfect setting for our next adventure, she said with a mischievous glint in her eye. The idea of an extended period of exploration and connection was enticing. We eagerly agreed, looking forward to what promised to be an unforgettable experience. Before the trip, we established clear ground rules to ensure everyone's comfort and enjoyment. These discussions reinforced our commitment to open communication and mutual respect. We wanted this getaway to be about deepening our connections, not about pushing boundaries too far or causing unintended hurt. As the weekend approached, I found myself both excited and nervous. The secluded cabin promised privacy and freedom, but it also meant there would be no easy escape from any emotional fallout. This was a significant personal challenge, a test of the trust and understanding we had built. The drive to the cabin was filled with anticipation. The forest around us thickened, the road narrowing into a winding path that led us deeper into isolation. When we finally arrived, the cabin was even more charming than I'd imagined, nestled among tall pines with a view of a serene lake. It felt like stepping into another world, one where the rules of everyday life didn't apply. As we settled in, the familiar mix of excitement and nerves bubbled up. This wasn't just another adventure, it was a chance to solidify the bonds we had formed. The stakes felt higher, the potential rewards even greater. We were ready to explore, to connect, and to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing we had each other to lean on. The cabin was nestled in a serene forest, a perfect escape from our everyday lives. The drive had been long, winding through dense woods, but the destination was worth it. Surrounded by towering pines and the gentle sound of a nearby stream, it felt like stepping into another world, one where our only focus would be each other. We settled in, the anticipation building as we prepared for a weekend of intimacy and exploration. The cabin was cozy, with a rustic charm that made it feel like a home away from home. As we unpacked, there was a palpable excitement in the air, a sense of impending adventure that made my heart race. The first night was filled with laughter and relaxation, setting a comfortable tone for the weekend. We started with light activities, playing cards, sharing stories, and sipping wine by the fire. The conversation flowed easily, each of us easing into the evening with a mix of nerves and excitement. As the night progressed, the mood shifted, becoming more intimate. The secluded setting allowed us to explore new fantasies and scenarios, pushing our boundaries further. The freedom of being away from the prying eyes of society gave us the courage to try things we'd only ever whispered about. Each new experience was carefully negotiated, ensuring everyone felt comfortable and excited. It was a dance of consent and desire, each step bringing us closer. As the night deepened, so did our connections. We shared intimate moments, each touch and kiss building a sense of unity and trust that enhanced our overall experience. The comfort of familiar hands and the thrill of new ones created a heady mix of emotions. I felt a profound connection to Mark, as well as a deepening bond with Lisa and Tom. It was like discovering new layers of myself and my relationships all at once. Of course, not everything was smooth sailing. Occasional emotional challenges arose, moments of doubt and insecurity creeping in. But we addressed them openly, ensuring everyone's feelings were acknowledged and respected. These moments of vulnerability strengthened our bonds, creating a deeper sense of connection. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. During the days, we explored the surrounding forest, enjoying shared adventures and building new memories. Hiking through the woods, we laughed and talked, the natural beauty around us a perfect backdrop for our unfolding story. The combination of outdoor activities and intimate moments created a perfect balance, enhancing our overall experience. The final night was a culmination of our shared experiences, filled with intense moments of pleasure and connection. We indulged in our fantasies, each touch and whisper adding to the crescendo of desire that had been building all weekend. It was a night of raw emotion and physicality, each of us giving and receiving in ways that felt both new and deeply familiar. As the weekend came to a close, we lay together in a tangled heap, the room filled with the scent of sweat and satisfaction. I felt more connected and satisfied than I ever had before, eager to continue this journey with Mark, Lisa, and Tom. The weekend had been a transformative experience, one that had deepened our bonds and opened our eyes to new possibilities. We packed up reluctantly, each of us wishing the weekend could last a little longer. But as we drove back through the forest, the memories of our shared adventure lingered, a promise of more to come. This wasn't the end, just another chapter in our ongoing story. And as we looked ahead, I knew we were ready to face whatever came next, together. Returning to our everyday lives, we felt a renewed sense of connection and excitement. The weekend at the cabin had done more than just scratch an itch, it had strengthened our relationships, providing a new foundation for our future adventures. As I unpacked our bags and settled back into the routine of work and home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation for what lay ahead. We continued to prioritize open communication, ensuring everyone's feelings and boundaries were respected. This ongoing dialogue helped us navigate any challenges and maintain a strong, healthy relationship. Mark and I made it a point to check in with each other regularly, discussing our thoughts and emotions with an honesty that sometimes surprised me. Balancing our adventurous experiences with our everyday responsibilities was a challenge, but one we embraced. The thrill of our encounters added a new spark to our daily interactions, enhancing our overall connection. Mundane chores like grocery shopping and laundry took on a new lightness, a sense of shared purpose and secret smiles making everything more enjoyable. Planning future adventures became a favorite topic of conversation. We explored new ideas and fantasies, each suggestion adding a new layer of anticipation and excitement to our relationships. It was like having a secret world just for us, a space where we could be our truest selves without judgment. Our friendships with Lisa and Tom continued to grow, built on a foundation of trust and shared experiences. We enjoyed regular activities together, deepening our bonds and creating lasting memories. From casual dinners to movie nights, each gathering was a reminder of the unique connection we shared. Occasionally, new challenges arose, but we addressed them openly, ensuring everyone's feelings and boundaries were respected. These moments of vulnerability strengthened our bonds, creating a deeper sense of connection. It wasn't always easy to face our insecurities, but each hurdle we overcame made us stronger. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table with Lisa and Tom, the conversation turned to the future. "What's next on the adventure list?" Lisa asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We've been thinking about a beach getaway," Mark said, glancing at me with a smile. The idea had been floating around for a while, and the thought of sun, sand, and shared experiences was incredibly appealing. We celebrated milestones together, marking our shared experiences and the growth of our relationships. These celebrations reinforced our commitment to each other and our shared journey, creating lasting memories. Birthdays, anniversaries, and even random Wednesday nights turned into opportunities to reflect on how far we'd come and to toast to the future. As I lay in bed one night, Mark's arm draped over me, I couldn't help but think about how much our lives had changed. We had taken risks, pushed boundaries, and discovered new depths of intimacy and connection. The road ahead wasn't always clear, and there would undoubtedly be bumps along the way, but I felt ready to face whatever came next. We introduced new elements to our encounters, exploring different dynamics and scenarios to keep things exciting. It felt like a secret game, each of us contributing ideas and fantasies, making sure to keep everything fresh and exhilarating. Every new experience was carefully negotiated, ensuring everyone felt comfortable and excited. It was a delicate balance, but one that we were all committed to maintaining. One night, as we sat around the living room, sipping wine and sharing stories, Lisa suggested, "How about we switch things up a bit? Try different pairings?" Her words hung in the air, the possibilities tantalizing. My heart raced at the thought, a mix of anticipation and nerves. "Sounds interesting," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The idea of exploring new group dynamics was both thrilling and a little scary. But that was part of the appeal, wasn't it? We experimented with different pairings and scenarios, each experience adding a new layer of excitement and intimacy. Whether it was Lisa with Mark or me with Tom, the dynamics changed, creating a rich tapestry of shared pleasure and connection. These experiences deepened our bonds, enhancing our overall experience and bringing us closer together. The trust between us continued to grow, creating a strong foundation for our future adventures. This trust allowed us to explore new boundaries and fantasies, deepening our connections. It was like building a house. Each layer of trust and experience added stability and strength, making us more confident in our shared journey. Of course, navigating emotional complexities was part of the deal. Occasionally, feelings of jealousy or insecurity would creep in, but we addressed them openly. We made sure everyone's feelings were acknowledged and respected. These moments of vulnerability weren't easy, but they strengthened our bonds, creating a deeper sense of connection. It was like we were all learning a new dance, sometimes stepping on each other's toes, but always finding our rhythm again. We shared new experiences together, building lasting memories and deepening our bonds. Whether it was a spontaneous weekend trip or a simple night in, these shared adventures added a new layer of excitement and connection to our relationships. Each memory was a brick in the foundation of our shared life, making us stronger and more united. Planning for the future became a regular topic of conversation. We discussed new ideas and fantasies, each suggestion adding a new layer of anticipation and excitement to our relationships. It was like planning a series of thrilling escapades, each one more exciting than the last. The future was a blank canvas, and we were all eager to paint it with our wildest dreams. Reflecting on our journey together, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we had come. We had grown and transformed in ways I never imagined. Each step of our journey had been a lesson in trust, intimacy, and connection. This reflection reinforced our commitment to each other and our shared journey, creating lasting memories that we would cherish forever. One evening, as we sat by the fire, I looked around at my friends and my husband, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. We had created something special, something that was uniquely ours. And as we planned our next adventure, I knew that we were just getting started. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing we had each other to lean on. We celebrated our journey together, acknowledging the growth and transformation we had experienced. We decided to throw a small party, just the four of us, to toast to our unique adventure. As we sat around the dinner table, laughing and reminiscing, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. We had come so far, and each step had brought us closer. This celebration reinforced our commitment to each other and our shared journey, creating lasting memories. Strengthening our connections became a priority. We continued to build on the trust and intimacy we had developed, finding new ways to enhance our relationships. These connections created a strong foundation for our future adventures, making every encounter richer and more fulfilling. The bond between us was no longer just about physical attraction, it was about understanding, trust, and deep emotional ties. Exploring new fantasies together kept our experiences exciting and fulfilling. We were always on the lookout for fresh ideas, new scenarios to try. Each new experience was carefully negotiated, ensuring everyone felt comfortable and excited. Whether it was a new game, a different setting, or exploring a fantasy we'd only talked about in whispers, we made sure it was a shared adventure. Maintaining a balance between our adventurous experiences and our everyday lives was crucial. We found ways to integrate our explorations into our daily routines, ensuring our relationships remained strong and grounded. This balance added a new spark to our daily interactions, making every moment together special. Even mundane tasks like grocery shopping or doing the laundry had an undercurrent of shared excitement and secret smiles. Of course, navigating challenges was part of the journey. Occasionally, new challenges arose, jealousy, insecurities, misunderstandings, but we addressed them openly. We ensured everyone's feelings and boundaries were respected. These moments of vulnerability strengthened our bonds, creating a deeper sense of connection. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. We built lasting memories together, enjoying shared adventures and deepening our bonds. Each memory, whether it was a weekend getaway, a spontaneous night of fun, or simply a quiet evening together, reinforced our commitment to each other and our shared journey. These memories were the bricks that built our strong foundation for the future. Looking forward to the future with excitement and anticipation became our new norm. We were eager to continue our journey together, knowing that each step would bring us closer. This anticipation added a new layer of excitement to our relationships, enhancing our overall connection. We talked about our dreams, our plans, and the adventures that awaited us, always with a sense of shared purpose and unity. One evening, as I sat on the porch with Mark, watching the sunset, I reflected on our incredible journey. We've come a long way, haven't we? I said, leaning into him. We have, he agreed, his arm around me. And I wouldn't change a thing. We looked forward to the future with a sense of adventure and confidence, ready to face whatever came our way. Our journey had taught us to be open, honest, and to embrace the unknown. It had brought us closer, made us stronger, and filled our lives with excitement and joy. As I gazed at the horizon, I knew that our story was just beginning. There were still so many adventures to be had, so many dreams to be realized. And with Mark, Lisa, and Tom by my side, I felt ready for anything. The future was bright, and I couldn't wait to see where our journey would take us next. I knew it from the moment our eyes met that night. This was trouble with a capital T. There was that instant zing, like in the movies, but you never think it'll happen to you. He had a smile that could charm a snake. I didn't even like that about him, to be honest. But there I was, a week later, sitting across a way too expensive lunch table, pretending the butterflies in my stomach were just nerves. So tell me about yourself, Sarah, he said. And stupid me, I did. It all came spilling out. My boring routine. My husband who'd stopped seeing me as a woman a long time ago, and how my kids were growing up so fast. Pathetic, really. It was like all that misery I'd been keeping bottled up inside had finally found a cork to pop. Thomas, the perfect listener. He just nodded, that slow, understanding way that made me feel like, for the first time in years, someone actually cared. That's the thing about these guys, they prey on vulnerability. They see a crack and they just know how to wedge themselves in. He played on it like a cheap violin, telling me his own sob story about some dead-end, loveless marriage. Turns out, we were both miserable. Funny how that makes you feel so much less alone. Funny how quick something can turn, isn't it? One minute you're a sensible, married woman having a little harmless lunch, and the next, you're sending flirty texts from the bathroom, sweating like a teenager. It was like something had snapped in me. Can't stop thinking about you, I wrote, my thumb hovering over send. Hitting that button changed everything. The second that text vanished into the ether, I knew I wasn't just flirting anymore. This felt reckless, dangerous, it felt damn good. A week later, we weren't lunching anymore. Some cheap motel room, the smell of stale cigarettes, and the way his voice got thick when he whispered my name, it was intoxicating. I should have felt disgusted, but I couldn't. All I could think was, finally, I'm alive again. Afterwards, the guilt hit me hard. The drive home felt like 1,000 miles, my stomach twisting into knots. But, when I saw my husband slumped on the couch, his face illuminated by the flicker of the TV, that pang of guilt. It vanished along with his outline. That night, as I lay beside him, the lie felt heavy on my chest, but beneath it, a flicker of excitement wouldn't die. Thomas was wrong, so wrong for me, but somehow, that just made him more irresistible. Things blurred together after that. The thrill of sneaking around was one hell of a drug, and boy, was I hooked. My whole life became a stupid balancing act one was bound to fail. Late meeting. I'd lie to my husband, then rush to some cheap hotel room where Thomas would be waiting in his wrinkled suit, that same cheesy grin on his face. Every second with him was tainted with guilt, but then he'd touch my skin and, poof, all that responsible wife stuff vanished like smoke. Back home. I'd bury myself in domestic routine, scrubbing imaginary stains from the kids' clothes, anything to fight off the image of Thomas's hands on my body. I'd overhear my husband talking to the kids on the phone, his voice full of love for them, and the guilt would choke me all over again. It was exhausting but way too thrilling to stop. The lies got easier, more elaborate. It was like I'd become a pro at inventing fake work trips, sudden family emergencies, you name it. My best friend, bless her clueless heart, kept marveling at how busy I'd become. If only she knew. Sometimes, I'd catch my own reflection. Eyes bright with lies, the flush on my cheeks not just from exertion, and barely recognize the woman staring back. Thomas started pushing for more. Weekends away, fancy dinners I could never explain. I knew it was crazy, but I also kind of liked the risk, the feeling of dancing on the edge of disaster. He started talking about leaving his wife too. We could be together for real, Sarah, he'd whisper, holding me close. It was a fantasy, of course, but it gave me a reason to spend those stolen hours together without losing my mind. Then came the jewelry. First, a necklace, delicate and beautiful. Way too much for a fling. He saw the doubt in my eyes. Think of it as spoiling yourself. You deserve it, he said, all smooth and insistent. And the stupid thing is, he was right. I did deserve a break from my endless chores and the hamster wheel of motherhood. So, I took it, and the earrings, and those wild nights in hotel suites, where I could pretend I was anyone but plain old, boring Sarah. He played me like a fiddle, I see that now. The gifts, the whispers, they were traps, a gilded leash. I was too busy feeling special to realize he was just tightening his grip. Every necklace, every getaway, made it harder to picture a life without him. It was pathetic, really. Here I was, a grown woman, letting myself be bought one shiny trinket at a time. My whole body turned into a giant knot of anxiety. It tightened a little more each day. A knot in my stomach when I heard the doorbell ring, a knot in my throat when I saw a strange number flash on my phone. Turns out, you can't live 100 different lives without some serious side effects. Thomas had this way of making me feel like the only woman in the world, but I wasn't an idiot. I knew the sweet talk could switch on a dime. One minute he'd be all, "You're my everything, Sarah," and the next, his phone would buzz and he'd be off meeting a client. I'd pretend it didn't bother me, but of course it gnawed at me like a rat. Turns out, I was right to be paranoid. One late night at some out-of-the-way bar he liked, there she was, some blonde thing, half my age, practically draped across his lap. I just froze. The roar in my ears drowned out whatever he was saying. I wanted to scream, make a scene, but all I could do was watch my little fantasy world crumble. Instead of walking out, I cried in the bathroom for what felt like hours. Then, I walked right back to the table, sat myself down, and smiled. Like a good little wifey, just waiting for her husband to finish his business meeting. I think a part of me wanted to see just how far he'd take it. When he finally looked my way, that smirk vanished real fast. He knew. The fight started after that. Me. Yelling in the car on the way back to our hotel, tears smudging my makeup. Him, angry and cold. "You're being crazy," he'd hiss. I knew I was, but I couldn't stop. My whole life felt like a powder keg ready to blow. Back home, I couldn't even look my husband in the eye. The way he trusted me, the way he still kissed me goodnight, it made my skin crawl. I'd snap at the kids, then sob when they were out of earshot. Sleep started to feel like some kind of twisted joke. If it wasn't guilt keeping me up, it was nightmares, me getting caught, my husband's face twisted with betrayal, the kids walking away from me forever. Even when I did sleep, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding like a drum. One morning, I looked in the mirror and almost screamed. Haggard eyes, pale skin, I looked like a decade had been stolen from me in just a few months. Finally, I dragged myself to the doctor. Mumbling something about stress and exhaustion, expecting some sleep pills. What I got was a long, serious look and a referral to a therapist. Turns out, you can't lie your way out of a panic attack. That therapist had a way of peering right into your soul. It was infuriating. Week after week, I dodged her questions, spin half lies, trying to make myself look like some victim of circumstance instead of the architect of my own misery. But she wasn't buying it, not for a second. One day, she hit me with it. Sarah, this isn't about stress or exhaustion. This is about a lie you're living. It felt like a punch in the gut. I knew she was right, but admitting it out loud? That felt like stepping off a cliff. That night, everything cracked open. My husband was watching some mindless TV show, and I just couldn't take another second of his oblivious trust. I need to talk to you, I blurted out. His eyes met mine, and for a second I saw a flicker of fear in them. The words spilled out like poison, not everything, of course, not the sordid details, but enough. His face turned ashen, he didn't yell, didn't throw things. Worse, he just sat so still, like he turned to stone right in front of me. Is he? Is it someone I know? He managed to ask. The pathetic hope in his voice broke what was left of me. I should have just said yes, made it easy, but I just shook my head. The silence was deafening. Finally, he stood, towering over me now. I need time, he choked out. I need to think. Later, lying in our big empty bed, I felt a sick sense of relief. The secret was out, hanging between us. I could almost breathe again. Almost. Next morning, back to purgatory, stiff smiles, forced conversation over breakfast with the kids, him packing an overnight bag with that same stone-cold expression. It was all so agonizingly polite. As he walked out the door, he turned back one last time. You choose, Sarah, he said, him or me, but know this, if you choose him, don't expect to come back. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone with the echo of his words and the weight of this impossible choice. My marriage, the life I'd built, crumbling around me, and for whom? For a man who might already be with some other woman, laughing at my misery. Every cell in my body screamed at me to pack a bag, to run to Thomas and beg for forgiveness. But another, quieter voice whispered, what happens when the thrill fades again? When another blonde hangs off his arm. I wanted to smash something, to tear the whole damn house down until there was nothing but rubble. But all I could do was sink to the floor and sob until I couldn't cry anymore. My phone jangled me awake. It was barely dawn, and that could only mean one thing, trouble. My heart sank before I even picked up. Sarah, it's Kate, my best friend's voice was strained, a whisper laced with fear. It's Thomas, there's been an accident. The next few hours were a blur of shock and frantic activity. Dressing in a daze, racing to the hospital, the sterile walls and the smell of antiseptic bringing back a wave of nausea. And there was his wife. I knew her, of course. Not personally, but from a distance. The photos Thomas showed me once, where he'd carefully cropped her out, the beautiful wife, the two smiling kids. Perfect family he'd never leave. Lies, all lies. Now here she was, pale and shattered, looking 20 years older overnight. A small part of me felt some twisted satisfaction, but mostly, I felt shame wash over me like acid. I was the other woman. The homewrecker. I lurked by the waiting room, too cowardly to face her. Instead, news came from a grim-faced doctor. Severe injuries, he said, he's lucky to be alive. Alive, but maybe not the same Thomas. Maybe not the man I'd lost my damn mind over. The irony hit me like a ton of bricks. It was Kate who finally dragged me out of there. You need to see this, she said, shoving a crumpled tabloid into my hands. The headline screamed, local businessmen's double life exposed. There was my Thomas, blurry photo taken from behind some bushes, leaving our usual motel the morning before. And right beside the trashy gossip were those family photos of his I thought I knew so well. It all came crashing down. His wife at the hospital, the photos, those kids who'd probably never look at their dad the same way again, this was my fault. The guilt wasn't a knot anymore, it was a living thing inside me, clawing its way out. I couldn't go home. Not yet. Instead, I made Kate drive me to his place. Maybe I needed some twisted closure. His apartment was exactly as I imagined, soulless, generic, with a half-packed suitcase by the door. Was he running away? Maybe with one of the many other women he'd probably strung along. Then, I saw it on his desk, a framed picture I recognized. Me, my face smiling out under his lying eyes. A wave of disgust washed over me, and finally, the illusion broke. There was nothing left to hold on to. No love story, just a trail of destruction, and a whole lot of people hurt because of my stupid, selfish choices. Going home was like walking into a tomb. The kids' voices echoed in the empty rooms, their drawings still hanging on the fridge. That perfect little life was no more, destroyed by my own hands. My husband was staying with his parents. When he'd come back, it wouldn't be to reconcile, but to pack up whatever was left of his life here. I hadn't even been able to look him in the eye when I saw him briefly at the hospital. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, grim meetings, and endless paperwork. The only thing my husband and I seemed to agree on was making it quick and quiet. We both knew there was no fixing this, no going back. At least the money wasn't an issue. He took more than his fair share, but I didn't fight it. It felt like dirty money anyway. My parents were surprisingly supportive, heartbroken, angry, but there for me. It was with them I weathered the storm that followed. Whispers in the grocery store, averted eyes at the school pickup. Kate stood by me, fierce as a lioness, but even she couldn't shield me from judgment. The town I'd grown up in was suddenly a hostile place, each street corner a reminder of my spectacular fall from grace. The hardest part, though, was the kids. Their initial confusion turned to anger, and then to something worse, distance. My bubbly, chatty daughter became sullen, barely speaking to me. My son, usually so affectionate, kept his gaze fixed on anything but me. It felt like 1,000 tiny knives every time they brushed me off. It didn't matter that the lawyers had done their thing. I'd lost custody in the place that hurt most their hearts. Waves of nausea would hit me at random moments. The doctor prescribed anti-anxiety pills, but the only thing that numbed the pain was the cheap boxed wine I started hiding around the house. Nights were a waking hell of self-recrimination. The what-ifs haunted me. What if I had just been happy with my life? What if I hadn't answered his smile that first night? Every stupid, small choice leading to this wreckage. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. My job? Long gone. Caring about my appearance? Couldn't muster the energy. My once busy social life was a wasteland. Kate tried to drag me out sometimes, but it was futile. I didn't feel like the same Sarah anymore. That woman had been impulsive, maybe a bit naive, but there was a spark in her. Now, there was just a void where my soul used to be. The numbness eventually cracked, and what poured out wasn't sadness anymore, it was rage. Rage at Thomas for lying, rage at myself for being so blind, but mostly rage at the stupid, unfair way the world worked. Why was I the one suffering? Why did he get off seemingly scot-free, probably already on to the next woman to ruin? It gnawed at me like a rat. Sometimes I'd imagine confronting him, a grand showdown, screaming in his face. But then I'd remember those awful pictures of his wife and kids in the paper. They didn't deserve this. So, I took my fury out on the only target available, myself. I'd stare in the mirror, hating the woman reflected there. Weak. Pathetic. I barely recognized her anymore. One particularly bad day, after another bottle of that god-awful wine, I found a pair of scissors. My hair, long and blonde, just like the woman in Thomas's photos, lay scattered on the bathroom floor in a drunken mess. It looked ridiculous, of course, but I figured my whole life was ridiculous now anyway. Just another layer of ugliness I had to live with. The few friends who still stuck around tried. Coffee dates. Gentle suggestions of therapy. I'd just nod and smile vaguely, knowing I wasn't going to do any of it. Therapy implied fixing things, and nothing about my life was fixable. Instead, I spent my days holed up inside, blinds drawn, chain smoking and binging terrible reality TV. It was a perfect echo of how I felt inside, trashy and desperate. Sleep became my nemesis. When it did come, it brought only torment. Thomas's face, twisted with lust, then with surprise when I caught him. The disappointed eyes of my children. I'd jerk awake, sweating and gasping, convinced I was drowning. Some mornings, I just stayed in bed, burying myself under the duvet. Maybe if I stayed there long enough, I'd simply disappear. I thought about moving, getting a fresh start somewhere people didn't know my name. But what was the point? I couldn't outrun myself. No matter where I went, the shame would follow, clinging to me like a bad smell. This was my punishment, my scarlet letter. Maybe after a few years, people would forget. Or maybe not. Maybe this was how my story would be told from now on. The cautionary tale of Sarah, the woman who threw her life away for a cheap fling. And the worst part was, they wouldn't be wrong. Time passed with a strange, murky quality. Years slipped by, but nothing felt real anymore. Just an endless haze of muted colors and muffled sounds. I became a ghost haunting my own life, watching it pass me by from behind tired, distant eyes. Then, one afternoon, fate decided to give me a final, cruel kick in the teeth. Grocery store, of all places. I should have known better, should have stuck to ordering stuff online, but some primal part of me craved the illusion of normalcy. And there he was, Thomas, looking slightly thicker around the waist, maybe some gray creeping into his hair, but unmistakable. My heart leapt into my throat, then sank like a stone. Next to him, a radiant, heavily pregnant woman, younger than me, clinging to his arm with sickening adoration. A wave of nausea washed over me, so it hadn't been a lie after all, he'd actually left his family for some new target, just like I always feared. For a moment, I froze, the flimsy plastic basket dangling from my numb fingers. Was this my chance for some twisted kind of revenge? A scathing public confrontation, maybe? But what would it achieve? I was pathetic enough already. Instead, a strange, hollow calm came over me. He didn't see me at first, too busy cooing over some organic baby food. I almost walked away, almost saved myself from whatever fresh hell this might bring, but a perverse curiosity took hold. What? Thomas? I said, forcing a lightness into my voice. He turned, surprise flickering across his face before it was replaced by a carefully blank smile. Sorry, he said, do I know you? He did it so smoothly, so convincingly, that for a split second I doubted myself. The pregnant woman looked at me, a mix of confusion and suspicion in her eyes. No, babe, she chirped, resting a hand on her swollen belly, you don't know her. Fire surged through me then, not loud and dramatic, but that slow-burning, bone-deep kind. It took everything in me not to lunge across the aisle, to slap that smug smirk off his face. Instead, I managed a sickly smile. Must be mistaken, I mumbled, then turned and practically ran from the store. I couldn't bear to see the pity in her eyes, didn't want to be some deranged ex-lover harassing a happy couple. That's all I was to him now, a crazy woman with delusions. It hit me harder than anything had before. This was closure, the final nail in the coffin of my pathetic delusion. He didn't care. He barely even remembered my name. I was a mistake, a blip in his endless parade of conquests. Back home, the comforting numbness was gone. In its place was a simmering rage. My hands found the bottle I'd sworn I wouldn't touch again, my resolve crumbling with a pathetic little shrug. The next few days are a blur. Drinking around the clock, barely eating, and ignoring the frantic calls from my parents. The accident, when it happened, felt almost inevitable. It was late, I was stumbling home from the liquor store, weaving across a dark street. Lights flashed, a screech of tires, then a bone-jarring impact. I vaguely remember thinking how stupid this was, how it was all my fault. But mostly, I felt a strange sense of relief that it was finally ending. They say when you die, your whole life flashes before your eyes. Turns out, it's mostly just a flash of blinding pain, then blackness. I woke up in a hospital bed days later, bruised, battered, but surprisingly alive. A nurse, tight-lipped and efficient, informed me of the facts. I was lucky, it could have been much worse. The police came to ask questions. Mumbled answers. Vague memories of the car, the blinding headlights, nothing they could really use. Just another drunk in a small town, a statistic, not worthy of their time. Once I was released, it was like I never existed at all. No tearful bedside reunions with my kids, no concerned flock of friends. Even the usual gossips at the grocery store averted their eyes. My death would have made a tidier story, a more satisfying ending for everyone involved. My parents, bless their hearts, took me back in. Their faces were lined with worry, but there was a hardness in their eyes, a new guardedness I'd never seen before. It hurt more than any of the physical pain. I was a disappointment even in death, it seemed. My kids didn't visit. Called once to make sure I was alive, stilted and awkward, then hung up as quickly as possible. News of my little accident never even made the local gossip rags. Maybe the police paid them off, maybe it was just that boring. Instead, bits and pieces of the stories circulated by word of mouth. Whispers of troubled woman, lost everything, drank herself into oblivion. Close enough to the truth, I suppose, to make it sting. Months passed in a blur of medication, reruns on the TV, and carefully measured bottles of wine to stave off the tremors. My parents tiptoed around me, afraid to say the wrong thing. Once, my dad tried. "Sarah, maybe you could see someone, talk." His voice trailed off, defeated. There was no talking my way out of this hole, we both knew it. Besides, what was there to say? My story was as old as time. Woman makes stupid choices, ruins life, and